Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Selena from Homeless Campaign, and today I'm going to be sharing with you about water. Water is such an important topic when it comes to healing your body and finding the more holistic, natural way to heal yourself. Water can be a huge culprit of so many different kinds of health issues because of how many contaminants, metals, toxins, chemicals are often added into our city water, and we just drink right out of the tap. Especially when you're on GAPS or any kind of healing protocol, this would honestly be the first place that I would start in terms of detoxing your home, because it really just matters a lot. You're going to be cooking with it, you're going to be making meat stock with it, you're going to be making enemas with it, you're going to be drinking it a lot. You're made up of, I guess, like 70% water. And so you really want to make sure that the water that you have is clean and that it's actually hydrating your body. And there's a few things I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through the 3 things that you're going to want to make sure that you look out for in water, and my favorite brand of water filter, as well as some reasons why I don't use some of the other more popular brands that are out there. So without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so if you're not familiar yet, city water is pretty much the worst water that you can have because they add chemicals in it in order to preserve the water, in order to make it safer. It's not really doing what they're intending for it to do. They're trying to get rid of bacteria, but then they end up causing problems, chemicals that lead to autoimmune conditions. So really, you want to make sure that you have a really good filter on your water. Ideally, we were all living in a world where we have a spring next to us and it's a really high quality mineral water that's in the sun and splashes off of rocks and isn't contaminated by anything. But in the world that we live in, it is very hard to find that kind of source that always is the best source. So if you can find it, if you live near it, I would always recommend sourcing spring water. And actually, I will leave a link to a database where you can actually search your location and see if you live by a spring, because in that case, I would actually recommend going and picking up the water yourself, just like you do a little farm pickup in the week, add the water pickup to the load. I will link a brand of spring water that I trust, that I always get when I'm out and about, so that I can avoid the plastic, because plastic in water bottles is not great. Plastic are basically endocrine disruptors, and I talk about that in other videos of how endocrine disruptors can actually cause illness. But if you're like me and you live in a very industrialized city suburb area, you probably won't have access, or at least easy access, to this kind of spring water. And so you're going to need a filter on your city's water. But my favorite brand of water filter is the Berkey water filter. This is ideally with the carbon filters, but also the fluoride reduction filters as well, because our cities put fluoride into our water to help with our teeth. That actually doesn't help that much with our teeth, and it ends up hurting our bodies. And so you really want to make sure the fluoride is out of your water. I'll link my toothpaste video above as well if you want to hear my whole spiel about why I think fluoride is bad and the whole story of how it came into our city water nowadays. But it's really not good. And so if you can get that fluoride attachment to your Berkey water filter, that's going to be the best. Part of the reason I love Berkey is because it is the most cost-effective way to effectively filter your water without altering the structure. I know that was a mouthful, but let me unpack that. First of all, Berkey is just the most cost-effective way. Buying a huge whole house reverse osmosis water filter is not ideal. It also is effective, though. If you look at Berkey's research studies and how they've tested the water and everything like that, it is one of the most effective filters out there for filtering contaminants, metals, all the toxins that end up in your water. But unlike distilled water and reverse osmosis water, it actually isn't completely altering the structure. Anytime you filter water, you do to some degree alter the structure of it. And I know that kind of sounds weird, but I'll explain. Structure, I'll link a picture of what it's supposed to look like. As it gets filtered and filtered and filtered, or distilled, or goes through a reverse osmosis filter, it loses its structure. Now, the structure is what your body actually needs for the water to actually be hydrating. This is why spring water is so great, because water, when it's been in contact with the rocks as well as the sun, is naturally structured, and water can get restructured naturally by being in the sun. Your goal with any kind of filtration system is to not alter the structure too much, because you want it to be as hydrating as possible. I know all you reverse osmosis people out there probably think I'm crazy, because this is the best way and the most effective way to get all the contaminants out. But I really am looking at water holistically and not just for getting all of every single little bit of everything out. I'm looking also at the structure and how it affects and impacts your body and all that. So the 3 things to look out for when it comes to water is going to be cleanliness, minerals, and structure. I'm going to break down each of those, but basically cleanliness. If you're going to get cheap water filter from the store, you're also going to get cheap results. Unfortunately, that's the truth. I really do try to avoid any of the water filters that are attached to refrigerators just because those tend to grow mold very easily and they're very hard to clean. Wanting to make sure that there's no mold in your water, wanting to make sure there's no metals in your water, there's a whole list and slew of things you want to look out for. All in all, when it comes from the city, it's not ideal. So you want to make sure it actually really thoroughly, effectively cleans the water. Then, in the process of cleaning it and filtering it, most filters will filter out a level of the mineral content in the water. In spring water, you don't have this issue. You have the naturally occurring minerals. But when you filter, even with a Berkey, you lose a lot of that mineral content. One way that I've found to solve this problem is by adding Aussie trace minerals back into my water after I filter it. So with every glass of water I pour, I'll put a couple of drops in there, at least. I think it's like 10 drops to a quart, but I'm always putting minerals back into my water. And if you don't have access to that, or that seems a little bit too expensive, I'll link that below, but you also could just use a high quality mineral salt. So I use Celtic sea salt. Whenever I run out of these Aussie trace minerals, I will literally just take a pinch of salt, this Celtic sea salt or any kind of high quality salt, and put it in my water. Water won't taste too salty when you only put a little bit of it in there, but that's what it does. It will remineralize the water. And the third part here is structure. Like I just said, there are a lot of different options when it comes to structuring your water because most of us don't have access to spring water that is naturally structured and authentic and absorbable to our bodies. And so thinking about the structure of water and what your strategy is going to be to making sure that the water that you have is absorbable is a good thing to think about. Now, a couple of options I've found for this is that you could buy a machine that structures water, and it's expensive. Most of these kinds of like water structuring tools can be expensive, but they are effective and they do help with making your water more hydrating. You can kind of decide if that's worth it for you. I have not invested in any of these things kind of yet, but I am looking into one. I'll link a couple of the ones that I found below. Another option that I found recently from Bumblebee Apothecary was actually that if you make spa water, which is basically just putting like slices of like lemon or cucumber or lime in water and put it in the fridge overnight, the produce will actually structure the water for you, which I think is kind of cool. So you can kind of just get into that routine and then you have fresh, structured water every day. Structuring your water is really important. This is why distilled water is considered dead water, because it has completely altered its structure. That's actually how the contaminants and the water is able to be separated from each other, is it basically like boils it and then the condensation is what's distilled. I never really recommend distilled water. A lot of people will use them for enemas and I actually really don't recommend it for that. You really want this high quality, clean, remineralized, structured water for any kind of detox practice that you're doing. And just one quick note on how much water you should be drinking in a day. This obviously depends on how much like meat stock you're drinking, because meat stock can be very hydrating as well. But the minimum people say is that you're supposed to drink half your body weight in ounces per day. So if you're 140 pounds, you would need to drink 70 ounces of water a day. And if you're working out or exercising or doing any kind of physically exerting activity, that might actually end up being 3/4 of your body weight in ounces a day. So water is very important, and you're drinking a lot of it each day, ideally. I know for me personally, when I don't drink enough water, some of my chronic concussion symptoms that I was having for years actually will start to come back, and I'll kind of freak out a little bit, and then I drink some water and I'm like, okay, no, I was just dehydrated. Dehydration, it can lead to neurological symptoms, gut problems as well. Constipation is really common when you're just not drinking enough water. I will always encourage people to wake up and drink a quart of water in the morning. Sometimes I drink 2 quarts because if I wasn't drinking enough the day before, I will be very thirsty. If it's filtered, that's great. If the minerals are in it, that's even better. And if it's structured, wow, you just won. I hope that was helpful. Water can be a huge source of toxicity in our world, and my hope is to just provide some clarity and direction for people who are looking to make sure that their water is safe and healthy for their bodies. So if you got anything valuable out of this video, please comment below. As always, please like and subscribe to my channel. It is my passion to walk alongside people as they heal and grow. It inspires me and hopefully brings encouragement to you. Thanks for watching.